Turning our attention now to Gaelic games, and delighted to welcome Andy Moran, the Leitrim manager, to the show. Andy, how are you getting on?
Hi guys, how are you doing?
Very well. So year one is down. How would you assess the successes, the highs and the lows of Leitrim in the past season?
Yeah, it was brilliant on a personal level. It was great, to be honest, and not just saying that. Just I suppose it's completely different point of view of the game for myself, from going from playing to being on the sideline in an intercounty senior at both the league and championship game, which was exciting for myself. But then in terms of the squad itself, it's been a really good year. We've came off 2 years of not winning a game, I suppose. Not all down to anyone's fault, really. COVID kind of, I believe, hits the smaller squads more than it did the more established squads that have, I suppose, lots of finances, lots of resources. So Leitrim struggled through them 2 years. So this year was a new beginning for me, new beginning for the players, and I think it was, all in all, a successful year. We'd have loved to have been in Croke Park this weekend. Unfortunately, we just didn't get there. But up to that point, yeah, really encouraging year. Some really nice players there, if I'm being honest with you. Really kind of good core of young guys that really want to push on, and that makes it exciting from day one.
Was there anything that surprised you about intercounty management so far? Like anything that you didn't really see coming, or anything that maybe you couldn't have prepared for?
Oh, the intensity of it.
Right.
Even now, we're out 10 days, and it's there's meetings going on. There's you're trying to prepare guys. It used to be a situation, I think, even when I first started playing, that you leave, you go back to your club, you come back in December, maybe you have to shed a few pounds, and then you go again, But now with the intercounty season, it's 12 months around the year, in terms of, now if Leitrim really want to progress, they need to go, and they need to work now hard for go back to the clubs, but maintain them S&C programs, maintain their running programs, and make sure that they're ready to. You've often heard Paddy saying on the pod that Dublin used to come back ready to train, not trying to get fit. They come back in good shape, and that's the way it's gone. People have followed Dublin's lead, Mayo's lead, Kerry's lead throughout the last few years, and now Leitrim kind of need to bridge that gap. But then the intensity of everything within the setup, between organising sessions, the bits away from training, the logistics of having guys in Dublin, Galway, Limerick, all around the country, try to organise physios, gym sessions. Just it's all encompassing, and within a county as small as Leitrim, I can't imagine how that is for the bigger managers, the Desi Farrs, the James Horns, the Jack O'Connors of this world, where they have to organise everything on a much bigger scale.
It sounds like you're almost in like operations manager territory there for the next little while, trying to get all this thing up and running. Like, do you think that the managers of the so-called bigger counties have all that responsibility in their hands as well?
Yeah, I think they probably they definitely do, and they probably over the course of it, again, like, resources are huge in terms of Gaelic football. You've often heard it mentioned, I've heard it mentioned, and when you're playing, you don't really get a good sense of what's really necessary behind the scenes, in terms of funding, in terms of making sure guys have enough. Making sure people, like during lockdown, making sure people have enough equipment so they can work out, being monitored well enough that you can afford to pay skilled professionals to come in and make sure all them programs are monitored. And when you're in season, then that's the key thing. And I think what the bigger counties probably have, more so than the smaller counties, if they have more resources to get more people on the ground, so that they can look after more people in Leitrim, and I suppose other counties within the 32, both in football and hurling, it's probably a bit tougher. But then you're working off a lower playing base, like a smaller playing base, so it probably kind of closed the gaps in that. But yeah, Dublin, Mayo, Kerry are probably just a couple of years ahead of us in regard that. But the catch up will be fun, and I suppose the key thing for me as a young manager and all our background team is that you're learning as you go along, and you're kind of trying to you'll be ringing other guys. Even the pod last year when we talked to Rory Gallagher and Colin Collins, Joe, you'd have been taking little hints off them and little kind of guidelines off them on how you do this and how you kind of accelerate that process a bit more.
So I was just going to ask, did you pick up the phone to anyone this season as manager for a couple of nuggets of advice?
Yeah, I suppose our season was going along really nicely in terms of the way it went. Cavan and Tipperary were obviously in Division 4. They were the favourites to come out of the division. There was no kind of surprises there along the way. We played London. We done very well without Keith Byrne that day, and then we played Galway. So after the Galway game, there was a few phone calls made to maybe one or two past greats of the county. Obviously, I've John on my doorstep, which is a big help. But then there was other county managers along the way that you just ask them a little bits of advice, and you just pick it up as you're going along. So there's always little kind of interchanges between managers, and I wouldn't be ever afraid to ask for a bit of help. Believe me, you know.
How important, Andy, is the Tailteann Cup then going forward in terms of like what it gave ye in the season, what it gave other counties, and trying to lift yourself after Pearse Stadium? Like, because we'll say if you come into Leitrim job, so that, you know, a young manager coming in gives everyone a lift. Like, but it must be very, very hard to motivate players in other counties to keep committing to what's effectively a professional regime. So how can the Tailteann Cup be a kind of an inspiration for players going forward?
The Tailteann Cup for me, Johnny, is has a lot to build on. Do you know what I'm saying? It's got a lot more improvement to go to. I think the structure this year was okay. And then on the other side of that, I would say it's been absolutely, not the structure, Anton, but for counties like Leitrim, Sligo, even the likes of Cavan, it's been absolutely brilliant in terms of giving guys a chance. So what I mean by that is I'd love it to go to a round robin competition in 2023 in terms of ensuring that each team has three games to start off with. So the likes of Antrim, when they came down and played us, that was a knockout game. So Antrim had to wait 6 or 7 weeks when they lost to Cavan. Then they come down and play us. Now all of a sudden they're out. Where we were lucky enough to win that game, and then we had another game. But if everyone was insured 3 games, you're on about development, Johnny. Over this year, we've had 11 games, league and championship, 4 championship, 7 league. That's more than the last 2 years put together. Fellas can't improve unless you're playing games. Managers, we've got a young guy there for Leitrim called Jordan Reynolds. Okay, Jordan had never played for Leitrim. He'd never actually won a game for Leitrim right through 16s, minors, 20s. And he won his first game with a Leitrim jersey on him against Antrim. But if we didn't have that game, we wouldn't have seen him again this year. Do you know what I'm saying? That was his first game of the year. He'd injuries early on in the year, wasn't fit enough to tug out against Galway. But then all of a sudden he was ready against Antrim, came on just after half time, and then played the whole second half and extra time against Sligo. And now the whole county is talking about this young guy that we didn't know about 4 weeks ago. Do you know, that's the key thing. It builds a kind of confidence within the guys that they can do it moving forward. We got knocked out of the championship the day after Monaghan get knocked out of the championship. Already that gives us a chance, because if Leitrim get knocked out 4 or 5 weeks before Monaghan, you lose a full month of coaching your guys. Monaghan get a 5-week head start. Already a huge gap between ourselves and Monaghan, but to get another 5-week head start going into 2023. So where's the chance to catch up? The Tailteann Cup gives the Cavans, the Sligos, the Westmeads and the Offaly's the chance to keep training right through the summer, have a smaller gap for pre-season, and then all of a sudden then go again to push on in 2023. And I think the championship in a whole, Johnny, will get fundamentally better as the Tailteann Cup gets stronger. And I think the difference this time between the Tommy Murphy and the Tailteann Cup is that managers and players have really, really bought into it. Like, for example, our team, when we got knocked out against Galway, nobody left the squad. That's nothing down to me being this, that, or the other. That's because the guys knew that competitive games coming, that they could compete. And then sorry for the long-winded answer, and then last week against Sligo, you go down to Porkshawn and Carrick-on-Shannon. There's 5,000 people at the match. The place is absolutely, like, I'm not just saying this, I genuinely am just saying this, as good as atmosphere as I ever played in, and I was on the sideline, it was amazing seeing the Leitrim people, listening to the Leitrim people after the game saying the kids were at the game for the first time since they got to the league final in 19. The excitement was kind of back at it. Sligo and Mayo, pitch invasion after the game. It was just incredible to see. And that's the beauty of having games against teams that you can compete against at your own level.
That's exactly what you want it to be, like, you know. And it's just like I don't like people poo-pooing the idea of a competition because it isn't the All-Ireland, because I think games between the likes of Leitrim and Sligo can be very enjoyable and what they mean to the local people, and it's only in its infancy, and we're trying to break a long tradition here, and I think it'll really take off. I hope it does.
Yeah,
but Johnny, on that, I will say, wait till you see Sunday in Croke Park. Wait till you see Sunday in Croke Park. It will be unbelievable. It'll be better than the product that was put in place last Saturday. Even though the quality of the football will be better last Saturday with Kildare, Mayo and Roscommon and Clare, what we'll see in terms of atmosphere, enthusiasm, kicking the ball, players trying to be the best, will be a better product, I believe, on Sunday than what we produced last Saturday. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. You look at the Championship, the League One playoffs, the League Two playoffs in soccer. So they're some of the best games of the year, even though the quality mightn't be as good, but the excitement and the drama and the atmosphere creates a great product.
Well, that's a really interesting point, because I was just going to ask about that when you mentioned the 5,000 strong crowd in Carrick and how that made for a brilliant atmosphere. You clearly think that these games on Sunday should be played in Croke Park, and I guess for Tailteann Cup teams maybe it's different, but the suggestion was last Saturday that if you brought those exact same games out of Croke Park to a provincial ground, they would have been much better, even if you had the same teams going up against each other. Like, is it different this Sunday when you have teams who don't regularly play in Croke Park and that they should be played there, or did that Carrick experience make you kind of think twice about that, thinking, God, these provincial grounds do have a rocking atmosphere?
I think you answered the question, didn't you? No, I think the Tailteann Cup is different. For the likes of Sligo and Leitrim last weekend, the draw was to play in Croke Park.
Okay.
That's where the excitement was, because like you look at an Emblem Mulligan type figure. He's played over 100 times for Leitrim, which is not nearly half enough, if I'm being honest. But he played nearly 100 times for Leitrim, and he's played one time in Croke Park in the league final in Division 4. You know, so the draw was to get to Croke Park and to show the guys that there's club football, there's county football, and then there's Croke Park football, and to show them that like these are three nearly different competitions, different games, and to get them used to that, kind of pace of the game. And the big disadvantage for someone like Leitrim is that Sligo now go and play there, and they'll see a game played at a whole different level, a whole different pace, and then we have to play them next year in Division 4. So I would say it's different. Last weekend, Owen, totally agree with you. I was in Croke Park, and it was literally, when you see the seagulls flying in. Like, I remember doing runs after a game one time when I didn't play enough minutes, and doing runs after the game, and it was just, the seagulls were down on the pitch. During the game last week in the second half, there was that little people in the place that it looked like that at times, and it was just a really surreal atmosphere. But for the Tailteann Cup, I think there'd be 30 or 40,000 people at this. I think it'd be a great atmosphere.
No, that's really interesting, because I wasn't sure how much of an incentive it was inside the camps, because it's like something that's spoken about so much. It's like, oh, Emlyn Mulligan never gets to play in Croke Park, and I'm like, does he himself think that actually the Carrick atmosphere is something that he wants and has that championship feel? But clearly not. And just kind of on top of that then, and along the same theme, that if you just focus on the win against Antrim, Andy, how does that feel as a manager, as a group, compared to, say, I don't know, being involved with a big win for Mayo in Croke Park? Is it on the same level? Is it absolutely nerve-wracking? Is it on the same level of ecstasy when you get over the line as anything would have been with your Mayo days? Or how do those experiences compare?
Oh yeah, it's way worse in terms of nerves, in terms of pressure. Like when you are playing, you actually have some resemblance of control on the game. Joe, you can actually affect the game. So you're on the pitch when you're on the sideline. Your work is done when the guys cross the white line. So very kind of I'd probably get involved in the game. Maybe that's a bit of an experience, but I'd get involved kind of in the game as well, in terms of being encouraging, directing and stuff like that. So you kind of lose yourself in the moment as well. But the pressure of the game is huge as a manager. I'll tell you what's a huge pressure, lads, and you asked me what it's like. But when you play a game against Antrim and you need to turn around then for 7 days and play against a Sligo like it happened last week, and you need to get the video analysis done on the Antrim game, then you need to get the video done on the Sligo game. You need to talk to the guys that mightn't be too happy that they didn't play. You need to talk to the guys that did well. That 48, 72 hours from Sunday through to Wednesday evening is absolute maniac stuff, to be honest with you, in terms of pressure, in terms of just making sure that you have all the right people to talk to, and you're trying to pick a team then for the following week, try to analyse what Sligo might be weak and strong at. Like, that was just huge. And huge learning for us. But the pressure of the game, Owen, is huge, and completely different than when you were a player.
How do you approach that conversation with the lads who are unhappy with the minutes that they got at the weekend?
Yeah, I suppose at the start, like I was probably kind of flapping around it a tiny bit in terms of when you're talking to the boys you're trying not to hurt feelings and you're trying not to do it. But then, like, I kind of analysed it after the first couple of times I did it, and I just, honesty is the only way to go. You have to be honest. You've got to know the reasons why you're not doing it. And I think if you're honest with guys, I think 9 out of 10 times fellas just go, okay, that's fair enough. You know, I'll try to work on that. They'll be very disappointed. Kind of when you're not making 26s, sometimes you're a tiny bit embarrassed by that. You know, I don't mean that in a bad way, but you're going back to your family, your clubs, and you need to kind of be really respectful towards that as well. But honesty is the only way to go about it. It's I think it's the only way to kind of, if you want to kind of keep the respect with the players, I think if you're being honest with them. And I remember when I was a manager, or when I was a player, getting a phone call one time asking a manager why am I playing, and he just turned around and he goes, Andy, we need you for the last 20, not the first 20. And I just kind of went, well, that's fair enough. I said, yeah. You know, what do you say to that? You say, listen, he still wants me, he still needs me, but it's not the way I wanted to do it. It's not 70 minutes. But if people are just honest with you, I think it's the best way to go.
I remember you as an underage soccer player, but do you have sympathy for Stephen Kenny just having to deal with this, I don't know, this hysteria over a couple of results? Like,
it's mad, isn't it? It's but I see it, Johnny. I see it here with James Horan. The pressure is just enormous in terms of football. Like, our culture in terms of management, we've always, you know, us, like, Mayo's always been a mad football county, like insane football county. But since that run started in 2011, the pressures on managers have just, it's gone through the roof. And I got to know Andy during the year. We went up to Meath a couple of times for a few challenge matches. Got to know Andy, terrific guy, and the pressure he was under as a manager, and it's just it's enormous, and it's something that I think an advantage of being a modern player, like that I'm not finished too long. I kind of understood that pressure kind of going into it, but now it's still up a few notches than what I expected. But the top counties are under that much pressure now to get results. It's huge, and Stephen Kenny is just on a whole different level altogether.
You talk about that pressure, and that must be one of the frustrating aspects then when you come away from that game 2 weeks ago knowing that a decision to an extent does you out of a place in Croke Park this weekend. That ratcheting up the pressure all season long, and knowing that something's kind of taken out of your hands like that. And it was a significant moment, Andy, the square ball decision against you to rule out that goal at the start of extra time. How do you process that in the aftermath, especially when something like that is out of your control?
Yeah, the funny thing about that one, Owen, it was Shane Moran that put the ball in the net, and Shane is 29, I'd say, 29 years of age, and really smart. Like, you know, his key strength is that he's a really smart footballer. And I was just thinking to myself, there's no way he's got inside the box, you know, for a square ball. But listen, there's decisions within the game. These things happen. Very, very frustrating. I won't lie to you, especially in extra time. We had scored 4 on the bounce to get us back level. Jordan had scored a terrific point. Keith kicked a whirly altogether to put us level. And then the next score, actually, just after extra time, was the goal. So we'd have scored 1-4 on the bounce, which would have put Sligo under huge, huge pressure, you know. So, frustrating. But the game could have been won and lost within fine margins, and within the game, and we could have lost it, we could have won it. And listen, it's a refereeing decision. It went against us. Very, very disappointed. It'd be great, be unbelievable to be going playing Cavan this week in Croke Park, but it didn't happen. But what I would say is, when you're kind of analysing the game, and I found myself doing this maybe earlier in the week, you forget the great things that are just after happening. As I said to you, the kids at the game, they're coming in asking the likes of Keith Byrne, Ryan O'Rourke, these guys for their autograph after the game. the guys getting standing ovations coming off the pitch, both the Sligo and Leitrim supporters absolutely bouncing out the gate. So you can totally kind of focus on the result, which is important, or look at what's just after happening within the county of Leitrim, and the love of football kind of is back is back to where it should be. And for me, you always kind of, coming from a Mayo setup, you always kind of symbol where the team is at when you see the kids at the pitch. And if the kids want to meet their heroes, that's the job of any footballer, is to make sure that you leave something that the kids want to replicate into the future. And all of a sudden, these guys are doing it,
Absolutely. This weekend then it's Croke Park, it's Sligo against Cavan in the curtain raiser at 1:45, and Westmeath against Offaly at 4 o'clock, the Tailteann Cup semi-finals obviously. Who do you see coming out of them, Andy? You've seen a few of them up close and personal in Division 4 and in the Tailteann Cup this season, and who do you see going all the way?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Coming out of Division 4, you probably wouldn't have picked Cavan because they played well, but they just did enough. They just did enough to get through every game. It was kind of like they kept everyone at arm's length. They never really exploded. But then to go out and play a team that had a really good Division 3 in Antrim and destroy them. And then you see, okay, so you can take away and you can look at the Armagh Donegal result last week and say, Armagh hammered Donegal. But in reality, there was a 25-minute period there in the first half where Donegal absolutely ripped Armagh asunder, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to Armagh. Donegal played outstanding football, Thompson kicking points, Murphy kicking points, and it was just lovely to watch. Ryan McHugh kicked outside the foot one. It was just lovely. And then you have to analyse then the Cavan got really, really close to Donegal, and so you'd have to say Cavan have the form coming into it, and I think Cavan will probably just kind of sneak the whole competition. Now, saying that, we've seen Offaly, most of their second team in a challenge during the year, and I know John has done terrific work with them. I seen Westmeath playing against Mayo last year in Division 2, a game that they probably should have won up in Cusack Park. So they've got real talent there as well. And the thing about Westmeath, I would say, is the pace they have up front. They could be the team to kind of watch to get within 3 points of Kildare in the Leinster. So it's a real tough one to analyse. But I would say that Cavan probably have the edge. I would just say they probably have the edge winning the 2020 Ulster. I think they're really I think Jack, John, Tony and Mickey Graham have really kind of went after this tournament. So I think if they've really focused in on it, Cavan should sneak it. But I think it's going to be a really tough test from this week and the following weekend in the final. Yeah,
hopefully we've got 3 cracking games left in the competition. Just one last thing, Andy. Mayo on Saturday, they had a fairly mixed performance but got a positive result in the end. It is deja vu. We have seen this time and time again. We've seen this from teams that you played in, where through the back door they look so unimpressive and then they find themselves back in an All-Ireland final. So what would your message be to the people who are looking at that Mayo performance on Saturday and writing them off already ahead of their quarter-final?
See, the Mayo boys, particularly the guys that have been there a long time, know that they're not playing well. They wouldn't be dressing it up, like they wouldn't be turning around saying, "Oh, well, we got the result," and blah blah blah. They know they're not playing well. Like everyone that was at that game the last day, even the comeback was okay. It wasn't to the standard they want to play at. But it's the draw, lads, that Mayo would have wanted, and I don't mean that kind of patronising towards the players or anything like that. I mean it's now you either play or you get bet. You either play or it's all over. It's like there's no way about it. Mayo could play really, really well against Kerry and still lose. But they have to know the performance levels have to go up. There's no more excuses. And I think what happened with them teams in 16, 17 was that when we got to the point, then we could kind of up it. And when we got to Croke Park, we could up the level, the speed, the skill level that we need to play at. And we're just hoping as Mayo people that they do the same thing. I think it's a very dangerous game for Kerry. I think it's probably in the point now where, like Kerry haven't played a game since round 6 of the league. They played the last league game, which was dead rubber. They played Mayo in the final, which wasn't really a game. Cork put it up to them for 50, but you always thought Kerry now are going to pull away. Limerick have played. So they haven't really played a game since round 6. So Mayo not playing well, still beat two Division 1 teams to get to a quarter final. And I like Kerry should win the game, but I do genuinely think Mayo have a chance of going upsetting it. I think people kind of have short memories at times too. I think like Dublin obviously not playing to their highest standard, last year. But I think they were 10-4 up at half time. I think they got to 14 and then they never scored. And Mayo got on this momentum train like we love to get on. And all of a sudden started clipping away at Dublin and brought them to extra time, won the game. And Kerry on form should win, but I think it's a great draw for Mayo. I genuinely think it's a great draw.
Do you think any of the shadow boxing of the league game will stand to them here in that like they'll have learned much from that? Or do you think James Horan was thinking we might meet them in the championship and I'll know a lot more then?
I don't buy that narrative, Johnny, about the league final. I think Mayo went hell for leather to win that league final. I think the only difference in it is that Kerry are the fastest team. Kerry or Dublin of 5-6 years ago, the fastest team in the whole competition. And in that final, no Oisin Mullen, no Paddy Durcan, no McLaughlin. Obviously, Tommy Conroy wasn't playing because he's out for the year.
No Killian, essentially.
But like Killian's greatest asset was never his pace. But them four guys I mentioned are absolute speed merchants. So now all of a sudden you've Gavin White running, but you don't have a Paddy Durcan or no McLaughlin to go after him. So, essentially, Johnny, is that Kerry essentially ran us out the gate that day, and then you have the brilliance of Clifford then on top of it. So now at least Mayo will have pace to match pace in key areas, and then you can see then are they good enough to go and win. As I said, they probably shouldn't, but that day in the National League final, Kerry were just too fast for Mayo. In every asset of the game, we lost way too much speed. Mayo lost way too much speed, and the fellas we had to replace them are really, really good footballers, but they're a different footballer. They'd be kind of like me, and as Owen mentioned there, Killian, they'd be the slower, kind of more skillful kind of player, where against Kerry, if you don't have someone to mark Brian O'Bugley, you've no one to mark Gavin White, you've no one to mark Paddy Clifford, Darren Moynihan, these guys, they'll just run out around you. So at least the next day when Mayo go to Croke Park, they'll have speed to match speed, and then you see, have they enough about them up front to go and win the game.
Do you still listen to the football pod, or is that like texting your ex?
I would know, absolutely. As I often said, I'm jealous that O'Donoghue is so good, the little whore, but he's it's brilliant. I listened to the one yesterday. I was actually really surprised how and thank God for Tommy Rooney. I won't say that too often, but thank God for him. At least he stood up for me a bit. But the two boys were very big on Kerry yesterday. And rightly so. Kerry, in my opinion, I've been saying it for a couple of years, should go and win this All-Ireland and possibly All-Irelands then after. But until they do it, there's pressure on them. And I honestly think if any team can put a squeeze on them, it's Mayo. Now, Mayo's performance level needs to go way up. But the two boys, we'll be having words with them, both Paddy and Jamesy. They were very, very, very big on Kerry. But I think it's a real dangerous game for Kerry. I think all the pressure, every bit of the pressure is on Kerry. Me, you, Johnny, the two boys in the pod would all say Kerry should win, they will win, whatever. But that puts huge pressure on you. And like Jack O'Connor has a job in his hands in the next 10 days to make sure them boys don't get caught up with a bit of complacency going into the game.
Andy Moran, a pleasure chatting to you as ever. Thanks a million for taking the call.
Thanks for having me, lads.